among 240 million people in Mexico, among all the content circulating on the internet of that country during that week, among all the artists in the world who were actively promoting, who had just released new music, who were riding their own waves of momentum, one name rose to the top of the trending chart. Not a president's name, not an athlete's name, not a rising local artist, Park Jimin. And what makes this even staggering, BTS had not performed a single night in Mexico yet when this happened. No concert had taken place, no performance had occurred, no viral stage moment from Mexico City existed that could have triggered it. Jimin was trending in Mexico simply because of his existence, simply because he was coming. And among the 7 members of BTS, 7 world-class artists, all of them with massive fan bases, all of them riding the momentum of the largest K-pop tour in history, only one entered Mexico's trending chart. Only Jimin. But this is not just a story about trending numbers. There is a dimension far deeper than any chart statistic. There is a story that explains exactly why this happened. And there is one detail that almost no one paid close enough attention to, one that changes the way you understand this entire phenomenon. All of it is in this video. Don't go anywhere. Hey everyone, welcome back. On this channel, we never stop at the surface. We always look for the layer beneath the headline, why something happened, what it actually means, and what cannot be seen from the outside. If this is your first time here, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Content like this is what we consistently bring to this space, and you don't want to miss it. All right, let's go deep. May 4th, 2026, BTS was traveling from El Paso, Texas, toward Mexico City, the next stop on the North American leg of the Arirang World Tour. 3 nights were already scheduled, May 7th, 9th, and 10th at Estadio GNP Seguros. More than 136,000 tickets had already sold out completely. This was BTS's first visit to Mexico in nearly 9 years since their appearance at KCON Mexico in 2017. 9 years. Think about how many generations of fans were born and grew into ARMY during those 9 years. People who had never once had the chance to see BTS perform in their own country. And in the middle of the extraordinary anticipation that had been building for years, something happened that no one truly predicted. On May 4th, 3 full days before the first concert, Jimin's name appeared at the top of Mexico's national trending chart, alone, unaccompanied by any other member's name, without any new viral performance or new stage moment as a trigger, just his name, just the fact of his imminent arrival. And when that happened, the conversation about it exploded on Twitter, not just within Mexico, but globally. To understand why this moment carries the weight that it does, you need to understand one thing about how trending charts actually work in the social media era. Trending is not simply about who is being mentioned the most. Trending is about the concentration of conversation within a specific window of time. Which means that to trend, you don't just need a large number of people talking about you. You need a large number of people talking about you simultaneously within a relatively narrow window of time. And what is capable of moving millions of people to speak one name at the same time? Usually there is a trigger. A new song drops, a new performance appears, a major piece of news breaks, a controversy explodes. But on May 4th, 2026, none of those things had happened specifically for Jimin. No new song, no new performance, no breaking news that had just emerged. There was only one thing. Jimin was coming, and thousands, possibly tens of thousands of people in Mexico were simultaneously talking about that, enough to push his name to the top of a national trending chart. That cannot be bought. It cannot be engineered by any PR team in the world. It cannot be manufactured by any marketing strategy, no matter how sophisticated. That is evidence of a connection that had already been planted very deep between one artist and millions of people who had never met him in person.
Then on May 6th, the day before the first concert, something happened that complicated this story, but also, without anyone intending it to, made it significantly stronger. BTS was invited to Mexico's National Palace to meet directly with President Claudia Sheinbaum. This was an extraordinary diplomatic moment, a head of state welcoming honored guests before all 7 members performed in front of hundreds of thousands of fans. Photos from the meeting began circulating on social media, official photos from the presidential account, and fans who saw those photos noticed something. Only 6 members were clearly visible in the frame. Jimin was not there. Within minutes, Twitter erupted. The hashtags "Where is Jimin" and "BTS is 7" forced their way into worldwide trending. Fans were upset, fans were worried, fans demanded clarification. And among all the reactions flooding the platform, one comment that was exceptionally sharp received hundreds of thousands of retweets. Written by an army who probably didn't anticipate just how far those words would travel. "Since you can still edit your post, could you please choose a picture with all 7 members? Why crop Jimin out of such an official post? He's also the only BTS member trending in Mexico, by the way. Where is Jimin? BTS is 7." 2 things placed side by side in a single statement. The erasure in an official photo, and the fact that Jimin was the only one trending in Mexico. That contrast between Jimin being marginalized in one image, yet being the one person who had most deeply taken root in the hearts of millions of Mexican fans, is a contrast that speaks very, very loudly. But wait, because there is a dimension of this story that almost no one has examined in any real depth. When we talk about Jimin trending in Mexico, we are not talking about Mexico as simply one of the countries that supports BTS. We are talking about one of the largest Latin music markets in the world. Mexico is a country with an extraordinarily strong entertainment industry, a very defined cultural identity, and a very high standard of musical taste. And K-pop artists, despite their remarkable global reach, do not always manage to break into national trending charts in countries with a cultural identity as strong as Mexico's. But Jimin did, before a single night had taken place, and this was not the first time a pattern like this had emerged around him. Throughout the North American leg of the Arirang tour, the same pattern repeated itself in every city. In Tampa, Jimin was the member whose name trended the longest, whose fan cams accumulated the most views, whose moments generated the most sustained conversation. In El Paso, the nickname Stage Commander that he received immediately became a trending topic of its own, separate from all other member names. And now in Mexico, before he had even stepped onto the stage, his name was at the top. That pattern is not coincidence. That pattern is the result of something that has been built over many years. And here is the part that almost nobody talks about. If you look specifically at Jimin's fan base in Latin America, there is one characteristic that distinguishes this community from fan communities in many other parts of the world. The Latin fan community is extraordinarily expressive. They do not support passively. They create content, they organize fan projects, they mobilize each other in ways that are simultaneously very organic and very fast. And in a community that operates with that kind of expressiveness, the artist who earns the deepest connection is the artist who is also the most genuinely expressive emotionally. Jimin is that. For more than a decade, Jimin has consistently shown the most honest version of himself not only on stage, but also off it. He cries when he is moved. He speaks with complete sincerity when he is grateful. He responds to small things with gestures that feel personal. And the Latin community, which culturally places an extraordinary value on emotional authenticity, responded to that in a way that went very deep. That is why before a single night had passed in Mexico, Jimin was already trending. Not because of a major campaign, not because of a viral strategy, but because millions of people there already felt that they knew him, already had an emotional connection with someone they had never met in person. And what is even more striking is something that happened on the evening of May 6th, the night when Jimin appeared on the balcony of the National Palace alongside 7 other members in front of 50,000 fans who had been waiting for hours. Star News Korea published a report with a very specific headline: "The Blonde Prince Who Shook Mexico." Among 7 people standing on that balcony, among 7 artists who are all extraordinary in their own right, the cameras belonging to fans scattered throughout the sea of people below consistently found one face. And among all the banners and signs carried by those 50,000 people, the ones appearing most frequently bore the photo of one person: Jimin. Local Mexican broadcasters covering the event specifically highlighted the enthusiasm of fans carrying Jimin's photos. Media outlets with no K-pop background covering this from a national news perspective organically found that one name came up more consistently than any other. And that was not the result of any organized campaign asking everyone to bring Jimin's photo. That was the organic choice of millions of people who had each independently decided who they most wanted to see up close.
Now let's place all of this inside a larger framework. There's a concept in the music industry called cultural penetration, an artist's ability to break through not just into a music market, but into the broader cultural conversation of a region. Taylor Swift has it in America. BTS has it in Korea and across much of Asia. A very small number of artists have it in a way that is truly global. Cultural penetration cannot be forced, cannot be purchased, cannot be built overnight. It grows through the accumulation of moments. Moments where an artist touches something that resonates with the collective identity of a community. And what happened in Mexico during the period of May 4th through 7th, 2026 is evidence that Jimin has reached that level across Latin America. Not BTS as a whole, Jimin specifically. In a country that had been waiting 9 years, in a community that had spent years building a connection through screens and earphones, among millions of people who had never met him in person, but already felt something real enough to drive them into the streets, to Zocalo Square, to concert lines stretching for miles. That is not fandom. That is a social phenomenon. And what makes it even more meaningful is the context from which Jimin built it. He did not build this through strategy. He built it through consistency, through sincerity that has been proven genuine again and again. From "Love You," written for a small child in a white shirt at Tampa, to "Mexico, gracias," posted after he saw 50,000 people filling a square to welcome him. Each of those small gestures, which at the moment they happened might have seemed like moments that would simply pass, accumulated into a reputation. The reputation of someone who is fully present, who sees fans not as numbers, but as human beings, who returns love with love, not through a formula, but in a way that feels personal. And millions of people in Mexico who had never met him in person had already felt all of that. And here is where everything comes together. On the night of May 7th, 2026, Jimin finally stood on the stage of Estadio GNP Seguros in Mexico City. In front of him, more than 45,000 people who had been waiting 9 years, or 2 years, or 10 years, depending on who you asked, but all of them waiting. And when he appeared, when the stage lights found his face for the first time in front of Mexico City's fans, the sound that erupted from those 45,000 people was not simply a scream of excitement. It was the sound of people feeling something very specific: recognition. Like meeting someone you have known from a distance for a long time and finally seeing them in 3 dimensions, breathing and moving in front of you. That is a moment that cannot be created by marketing, cannot be engineered by any team, cannot be written into any rundown. It is the result of years of connection built one at a time, one post, one gesture, one honest moment by someone who never stopped treating every interaction as something real. And Jimin, standing on that stage that night, may not have fully understood how much he had built, but 45,000 people in front of him knew. And the millions of others across Latin America watching the live stream, following on Twitter, sharing clips without stopping, they knew too, that this was not just a concert, that this was a long overdue first meeting between someone who had always been present, even from far away, and millions of people who had been waiting for him.
So now that question comes back to you. If you were one of the millions of fans in Mexico during that period, who had maybe been waiting 9 years, or who had just become an army in the last 2 years, what did it feel like to see Jimin's name at the top of your country's trending chart before he had even stepped onto a stage? And from everything we covered today, the trending chart, the OT6 photo controversy, the Where is Jimin that went worldwide, the balcony of the National Palace, the Mexico Gracias, which part resonated with you the most? Write it in the comments because I genuinely want to know, and the conversations that come out of questions like this are always the best part of any video on this channel. If this video gave you a new perspective, if something here helped you put into words something you had felt but never quite articulated, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. That is the most direct way to support us in continuing to make content like this. And for the next video, I've been putting together something connected directly to what happened inside Estadio GNP Seguros on the first night of the Mexico City concert. There's one specific moment from that evening that carries far more meaning than it appears to on the surface, and understanding it requires all the context we've built together today. See you there, and as always, thank you for watching until the end. You doing that is the reason this video exists.